It's another review for the Monaco Virtual Grand Prix. Hello, my name is Alex as F1 Stuff, and today I'm going over the virtual Monaco Grand Prix that happened just last night. So if you haven't seen any of my other reviews for this whole virtual Grand Prix series that have been going on, I'll pop a playlist link somewhere in the description and in a card in the corner, but we will start off again with some driver roster changes. So Mercedes have employed Valtteri Bottas, another Formula 1 driver, finally has been added to the series, along with long-standing Esteban Gutierrez. Along with Ferrari, they have stuck with Charles Leclerc and also brought back Arthur Leclerc for his second race. It is the Leclerc brothers' home virtual Grand Prix around Monaco. Red Bull have stuck with Alexander Albon and gone with Kai Lenny, a surfer from somewhere, I can't remember where. McLaren have again stuck with Lando Norris and have gone for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Yes, that's right. Some guy that does the football thing. Renault have employed Esteban Ocon, their current Formula 1 driver, so that is now 8 F1 drivers on the grid, along with Nicolas Prost, the son of what's his name? Alan Prost. AlphaTauri have stuck with Tonio Liuzzi and have brought back Luca Salvadori from MotoGP as well. Racing Point have got rid of Jimmy Broadbent and instead chosen Louis Fonsi, who did Despacito. I don't know what was going through their mind then. It doesn't make any sense at all, but they've also stuck with David Schumacher for his third race as well. Alfa Romeo have again stuck with the pairing of Antonio Giovinazzi with Thibaut Courtois, another football thing. Haas have gone for Pietro Fittipaldi again, but have gone back to Louis Delatraz, both of their reserve drivers, and I just tried remembering who they had last time out, but it has completely left my mind. And finally, Williams have again stuck with their current Formula 1 driver lineup of Nicholas Latifi and George Russell. So with the driver roster changes out of the way, we will move on into qualifying for the virtual Monaco Grand Prix, and it was raining and we saw a big shake-up in the leaderboard. So let's get into it. We had Pietro Fittipaldi in the Haas on pole, 4/10 from Russell, and Schumacher in third, with Delatraz in the other Haas in fourth, the two Leclerc brothers 5th and 6th, Giovinazzi 7th, then Bottas, Norris, Albon, Gutierrez, Salvadori, Courtois, Liuzzi, Prost, Ocon, Aubameyang, Fonsi and Lenny, with both Fonsi and Lenny both failing to set a time. Not entirely sure what happened to both of those, but they did. I was quite surprised at Ocon down in 17th though, but we'll get on into what I thought about the race and the whole qualifying thing a little later on. So with a fairly mixed up grid from what we've seen in the last couple of qualifyings, we move on into the race, which was unfortunately dry. It would have been amazing to see a wet race, however a dry race around Monaco should still be exciting. And for that race, George Russell enjoyed a dominant victory, 40 seconds clear from Gutierrez, and then Charles Leclerc making it on the podium as well, from Albon, Arthur Leclerc, Pietro Fittipaldi, Norris, Latifi, Delatraz, Schumacher, Bottas, Salvadori, Prost, Giovinazzi, Aubameyang, Lenny, Fonsi, Liuzzi and Ocon, with Ocon failing to finish and Liuzzi being disqualified from the session. Important to note here that the race times are not the official race time for when they completed it. I just had a stopwatch running so I could get a rough guide of how long it lasted. However, the gaps and the intervals are the official times taken from the live stream. So now, like I do with the rest of the reviews, I'm going to pop a little scrolly list of the lap by lap leaderboard changes as I talk about what has happened in the virtual Monaco Grand Prix. So we start again with qualifying as always, and they still do that stupid talky thing over it. We waste the first 10-12 minutes of qualifying. I think it was closer to 12 minutes this time, and we only had about 6 minutes when they joined the stream back again. It just doesn't need to happen. Start the live stream 10 minutes earlier, have the talky bit, then get into qualifying. You don't need to do the talky bit over qualifying. They don't need to overlap. But anyway, Mika Hakkinen actually turned up to give his thoughts and impressions on the virtual Grand Prix, as well as the future of Russell, Albon and Leclerc as well, giving some nice insightful wisdom, such as staying consistent throughout the season and throughout the Monaco race, and especially in Monaco, staying out of the barriers. And what actually was kind of cool though, they did a shot of Ocon on, I think he may have been streaming, I'm not 100% sure, but he was actually being filmed by the Drive to Survive people that will be recording for the Netflix series, which will come out probably February-ish, same time as it did this year. So that was actually quite interesting to see that they were still actually doing that, despite the first half of the season not actually going ahead as planned. But as we move on into qualifying, when we finally joined it, both Leclercs were at the top, with Bottas in P4 being commended for his speed and surprising speed, as he hasn't actually had his simulator set up for very long, if at all, long at all. So he was pretty quick, but he did end up qualifying down in the lower reaches of the top 10. So after people had got used to it, people were getting faster and faster, like Pietro Fittipaldi and David Schumacher. And then live, as I make live notes on a bit of paper, I've just written, damn, that's a shaken up grid here with Fittipaldi on pole, Jesus, is what I've just written there, which was basically the thoughts of the commentators as well, that Fittipaldi had an incredible lap. I think he was one of the last to go out on the grid, so it was probably slightly drier, slightly more grip with the wet tyres, yada yada yada. Last man on track setting a time usually ends up going faster in the wet conditions. So that was all I had for qualifying, as there was only 6 minutes of stuff to react to. We then jump into the race, and there was a bit of a lag at the start, so the lights went out, nobody moved, and then about 2-3 seconds later, then everybody moved away. But that's fine. It was all good. But there was a big incident at Casino Square. Everyone managed to get through. I think it's La Source, the first corner, quite well, and even. I think there was one incident with a AlphaTauri, maybe, I'm not sure, but definitely going into Casino Square, I think Bottas got caught up with Giovinazzi, and there were a couple other people. So Bottas was pointing backwards, Giovinazzi ended up leaving the session, and then Fittipaldi fell all the way down to 4th by the first lap, as well, by the end of the first lap, and it was just a bit of a mess for I think he's Brazilian. I want to say he's American, but I'm fairly sure he's Brazilian. But already on the first lap, penalties. Penalties were a huge issue, which was the reason why Vittorio Liuzzi got disqualified. He had too many penalties. He had about, I think it was 18 seconds worth of penalties, which if you get you get 3 second penalties for corner cutting. He had 18 worth of them, so that's 6 penalties that he had, and then ended up getting disqualified on his next one. And there would, I think, genuinely at least everybody, apart from Russell and someone else that was inside the top 10, had a penalty at least twice. There was a lot going through everyone. It was a bit of a disappointment that Valtteri went down to last, but it was really good seeing him fight back through the field. Admittedly, we didn't actually see it because of the camera angles again, but also it was against people like Fonzie and a boomerang. Not that. A boomerang. Aubameyang? Definitely not the thing you throw. Another big talking point, though, is the argy-bargy. There was no damage, and it was basically bumper cars around Monaco. You could take a lot more liberties with the track. Going through to back, you could just bounce off the outside curb or bounce off the outside Armco. It was a lot of bumping and sliding around the barriers, bumping into each other, going into the hairpin. Oh wait, no, the hairpin's called La Source. What's the first corner called then? Saint-Devote. There we go. So yeah, going into the hairpin La Source, you could just dive up the inside, essentially use the other car as the brake, smash him into the barrier, and then you get round and through. So it was a little unrealistic in that respect, but it was still quite fun to watch. And that is exactly what happened to Albon. He ended up spinning at to back, going up the inside of... I haven't written down who. It must have been a Ferrari at the time, probably Arthur Leclerc, and it just didn't work out for him, and he ended up pointing backwards, but that was around lap 5 or 6 when the field was a little bit more spread out. So then we got into the pit stop strategies. Now these were all over the place. No one could keep it, not even the commentators could really keep up with the strategies that was going on. So Albon and Arthur came in. Most people were doing a one stop, but a couple did 2, like Gutierrez, etc. at the front. What was I saying? Penalties I've written down. Fittipaldi was being bullied out there. He really was. Gutierrez was a bad egg. Gutierrez, literally, when we hopped on board with him behind Fittipaldi, going into the first corner, he just didn't brake and used Fittipaldi to brake. Fittipaldi went into the wall, Gutierrez got past. It was very aggressive from Gutierrez. And for some reason Norris had a pumpkin on his head. Not entirely sure about that, but he had a pumpkin helmet. Then they went to Montoya, Juan Pablo Montoya. He popped in for a little interview, and then his mic went horrible and made my ears hurt, so I didn't really appreciate that. But he had some more insightful stuff to say, mainly promoted the Legends race from the race, the people, not yet, so that's confusing as well. So after all of that, I've just wrote lots of wheel banging here though. Good racing. If you think good racing comes with wheel banging, they were better off playing Mario Kart than Formula 1. I reckon, if any of you know of this game, I think it was called Formula 1 All-Stars in 2012, which was essentially Formula 1 Mario Kart. You got power-ups, you got weird boosty pads, you could smash into people, you had some funny damage and whatnot. That was a good game. I think it was on the PlayStation 3 at the time, so that would be better off than playing this, but we'll see. I feel they should have had some sort of damage on, but yeah, it's alright. And yeah, this was where I wrote Gutierrez as being a bit of a bad egg, to be honest. Arthur Leclerc was being squandered for his race, so he was stuck. He was looking good against Russell out front. Russell dominated this race, lights to flag, even with the pit stops, dominated. But when Arthur came into the pits, he ended up getting stuck behind, I think it was Gutierrez or Norris, I think, and just couldn't get past and ended up losing any chance of the victory, as well as being punted by Gutierrez right at the end as well. And I've wrote, the race has basically been decided by just before lap 20, after Arthur Leclerc came out of the pits, or after Russell came out of the pits and had that nice comfortable 20-something second lead before he came in. But who would get the last podium spots, that is really up for debate. And then around lap 20, I just wrote, where the hell did Ocon? Where the hell did Ocon go? Because I don't know. He was never mentioned by the commentators, and he never even appeared on the leaderboards anywhere at all, so we're not entirely sure what happened to him there. And as we move on to the last page of my notes, so many penalties, literally everyone has about 2. The camera angles are slightly better. There are lots of different strategies going on as well. Gutierrez is arging past everybody. Liuzzi got disqualified for too many penalties. Russell is being lonely out in front. They did some team radios, actually. Some team radios with Russell and his virtual race engineer, which was quite interesting. So someone was genuinely looking at all the times and pit stop strategies and such. I've written here, Gutierrez and Leclerc have a battle. Oh no, Gutierrez, what was that? He spun Leclerc. That's what I wrote live. I can't remember exactly what happened and exactly where it was, but I know that everyone was kind of calling for Gutierrez to not come back because he was a bit over the limit in this race. But that is the end of my little chatty bit about the virtual Monaco Grand Prix. So let's move on into the championships. So unfortunately, F1 on their Twitter put out their own championships. I'll pop a little picture to it on the screen now. Also, I've got the points wrong somehow from Leclerc. I'm not entirely sure where I've gone wrong. But equally as annoying, on my Excel table sheet that I keep track of everything, I ended up overwriting the data from the last 2 races without realising. So I don't have any of that data for I think it was Spain and Brazil. I don't have. It's just gone. I must have not copy and pasted over into a new sheet. I just deleted the data that was in it and then filled it back in with the current race. So I don't know where I've gone wrong at all, as I can't remember what position everyone finished in. But here's my order after Spain. I know lots of people don't care about a championship, as doesn't really mean anything, but I think it's quite interesting to take a look. So that's the rounds after Spain, with Charles Leclerc leading Russell and Albon, and then as we move to Monaco, Charles Leclerc's lead is now only down to 3 points, with Albon 24 back, with the two Mercedes now together in 4th and 5th. And as you can see, Schumacher has just popped himself onto the leaderboard finally with just the 1 point. But as people don't like keeping a normal championship, as not many people get to race for a second or third time, I've decided to do a driver's average points based on the number of races that they have done. So this was the championship after Spain, with the average points with the number of races that they've done. So you can see Latifi and Gutierrez have done the most races on 5 and are in 7th and 14th, with Charles Leclerc leading on 20.8 points, 0.8 clear from Zhao. But you can see that after Monaco, Zhao now takes the lead with his 2 races and 20 points to Charles Leclerc's 5 races with 19.6 points average. Russell is still 3rd with the 2 Red Bulls 4th and 5th, and Lundgaard 6th. Then Arthur Leclerc, Gutierrez, Lawson, Fittipaldi, Latifi, Giovinazzi, Red Eye, Delatraz, Broadbent, Norris, Pietro Fittipaldi, Salvadori, Beganovic, Foucault, Davidson, Sainz, Futrell, and David Schumacher, who has done 3 races and scored just the 1 point. So that was it for the drivers, and the constructors is a lot easier to keep a track of, as both teams always run 2 cars. So again, this was the leaderboard after Spain, with Ferrari leading Williams and Mercedes, with Red Bull 4th. And then after Monaco, it stays the same order, but McLaren jumped from 10th to 7th. And that is now the end of my virtual Monaco Grand Prix race review. Well, I hope you have all enjoyed that video, guys, and I will catch you in the next one with whatever I decide to make. I'll see you then.